Welcome to the ultimate ChatGPT for data science tutorial. In this tutorial, you are going to learn about ChatGPT, how it works, and most importantly, how you can utilize it to make data science easier, faster, and more efficient. We are going to make ChatGPT write SQL queries, analyze data using Python, and even train machine learning models. So what is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is an advanced language model that can understand and generate text. You can use it to create content, write articles, emails, and even write and explain code. We can use it to generate data, write unit tests, and train machine learning models. Now let's move on and see ChatGPT in action. Head over to chat.openai.com, and if you don't have an account, sign up. It won't take a minute. Once you've logged in, you're going to see the main screen with an input box to talk to ChatGPT. Now here's my first prompt. List the top 10 free courses for machine learning. As you can see, it listed some of the best machine learning courses out there. We can also ask it questions about the answers it produced previously. Let's ask it what are the key takeaways from the third course it listed above. It was able to note that the third course mentioned above was Machine Learning by Andrew Ng. Not only that, it listed the key takeaways correctly. The takeaways it mentioned is exactly what you can expect from this course. Now let's use ChatGPT for data science. We'll start by loading a dataset to ChatGPT. We're going to get our dataset from W3 Schools. So head over to w3schools.com/SQL. Click on the Try It Yourself button. It will bring you to a page where you can write SQL queries. Change the customers table to the products table and run the SQL statement. You will get the query results below. Just copy the first few rows, including the headers, then go to ChatGPT, tell it that this is the products table, and then paste what you've copied. It was able to understand that this is a list of products, and it was able to detect the column names as well. It detected the product ID, product name, supplier ID, category ID, unit, and price. The columns are self-explanatory and we'll be using it to write SQL queries. Let's tell it to convert the data above to a tabular format, so it can be easier to see. ChatGPT generated a beautiful looking table for us. Now we can ask it questions about the dataset. Let's ask it what is the product that has the highest price. The answer is Mishikope with a price of 97. Let's see if that's correct. Indeed, it's correct. Let's also ask it what is the product that has the lowest price. It's Aniseed with a price of 10. Let's tell it to calculate the average price for the products above. Not only that it showed you the average, but it showed you how to calculate it as well. If you write it again, it might even show you an SQL query. Speaking of SQL queries, let's make it write some. Let's ask it to write a query that gets the product with the highest price. The query looks good. It orders the products by the price in a descending fashion and then limits the results to 1, thus effectively getting the product with the highest price. Let's also tell it to get the product with the lowest price. Like the query above, it did the same thing, but it ordered the price in an ascending fashion. Let's also tell it to calculate the average product price. The query is straightforward and it's using the average aggregation function. Now let's make things a little bit harder on ChatGPT. Let's import a couple more tables and ask it questions that is only possible to solve by joining tables together. Let's head back to W3 Schools and get the order details table. And let's import it into ChatGPT like we did in the products table. Now let's do that for a couple more tables. Let's do it for the orders table. And the last table is going to be the suppliers table. Now let's ask it to calculate the average product price per supplier. This will require ChatGPT to join the products table and the suppliers table together. Let's see how it does. It was able to join the products table and the suppliers table on the supplier ID column. And it was able to use the average aggregation function with the group by supplier name statement. This query looks correct, but let's copy it and make sure that it runs correctly. Just copy the SQL code, then head over to W3 Schools again and paste the query. Not only that it ran without any bugs, the results look correct. Now let's make ChatGPT do a small calculation. We can ask it to write an SQL statement that gets the product that achieved the highest revenue. This will require it to join the products table and the order details table, and then understand that revenue is price times quantity. You can see that it understood that revenue is equals to price times quantity, although I never explicitly mentioned that. Also, it was able to join the products table and the order details table together correctly. Now let's make ChatGPT write an SQL statement with 3 joins. We can ask it to get the employee that made the highest sales from the tables above. This will require it to join the orders table, order details table, and the products table together. It was able to join the orders table, order details table, and the products table together. And not only that, the SQL statement looks syntactically correct. But let's see if it runs. It ran without any bugs, and it actually got the employee ID that has the highest sales. Now let's make ChatGPT use window functions and subqueries. We can simply ask it a variation from the question above. We can ask it to get the employee that made the second highest sales. Wow, not only that it was able to use the rank window function, but it was also able to put the subquery into a common table expression so that the query looks neat and readable. Now let's use ChatGPT to analyze some data using Python. Let's use Kaggle's heart attack analysis and predictions dataset for this tutorial. I'll leave the dataset link in the description below. Let's download the dataset by clicking the button on the upper right corner. You'll get a file like this called heart.csv. Now let's copy the first few rows to import it in ChatGPT. We can give it a small sentence like this is a heart attack dataset and then paste in the dataset. ChatGPT was able to understand that this is a heart attack dataset, and it was also able to list down a couple of columns. It was also able to understand that the output column had the information of whether or not a patient had a heart attack. Now let's ask ChatGPT to write a Python program that reads the dataset, gets the data types for each column of the dataset, get the summary statistics for the dataset, and drop any duplicate rows. We can see that ChatGPT used pandas to read the dataset and to do the rest of the tasks. This script tackles all the points that we mentioned above. Also, it looks syntactically correct. Let's copy the code and paste it in a Python notebook to see if it works. We'll import pandas, then read in the dataset. We'll just need to change the CSV name to read the correct file. ChatGPT used dtypes to present the data types for the columns. Then it used the describe function to print out summary statistics of the dataset. The describe function presents all sorts of statistics. It presents the count, the mean, minimum, standard deviation, and the maximum, as well as the percentiles for each column. This will give you an idea of how each column is distributed. Let's print out the shape of the data frame. You see that it has 303 rows and 14 columns. Then let's drop all duplicate rows and print out the shape again. Now it has 302 rows. That means that there was one duplicate row removed. ChatGPT is doing good till now, but let's see how it performs when we ask it to create some univariate analysis. Let's ask it to create a visualization with the proportions for all categorical columns. Let's copy-paste the prompt we used above and change the second and third points. Let's ask it to put all categorical columns in a list manually. This is because I wanted to choose the categorical columns and not depend on the data types because they are all numerical. Then I'll tell it to plot the proportions of different values for every categorical column we have. We can see that it generated a list with the correct categorical column names. Then it looped over each column name in the list, and it was able to use the values counts function and the plot function to produce the proportions bar chart. Let's copy the code and paste it in the notebook. Let me import the matplotlib at the beginning of the file, and then run the code. We can see that 70% of our dataset is sex of 1. We can also scroll down to see the different proportions for each column that we have in our dataset. The output column is important to look at. It will determine if your dataset is skewed or not. This is not a skewed dataset, and this makes training a machine learning model a little bit easier. Next, let's ask it for the distributions for all numerical columns. Let's copy-paste the prompt above and change the categorical columns to numerical columns and the proportions to distributions. You can see that ChatGPT also chose the numerical columns correctly and was able to use the plot function with the kind hist to produce frequency plots. For example, age looks more or less normally distributed with an average age of 55. Then we can see the resting blood pressure is skewed to the right a little bit. You can also take a look on the other columns as well. Instead of histograms, let's say I want box plots. Box plots can be easier to interpret sometimes. All I have to do is copy-paste the prompt above and change distributions to box plots. Let's copy the code and paste it in the notebook. Now we can see the box plots for each column. Now let's try bivariate analysis. Let's start by telling it to generate a heat map. Let's copy-paste the prompt above and change the box plot to a heat map. We can see that it used Seaborn for this visualization. So let's copy the code and paste it in the notebook. There are no strong correlations between the columns. The absolute value of a weak correlation lies between 0 to 0.3, a medium correlation is between 0.3 to 0.7, and a strong correlation is above 0.7. As you can see here, we have no strong correlations between columns. Let's tell it to generate proportions with regards to the output column. So I want to have the proportions of a column when the output is 0 and another proportion when the output is 1. When the proportions are different, this might indicate that this is a valuable feature to predict the output column. We can copy-paste one of the prompts above and change the second point to listing all categorical columns except the output column. Then we want to plot the proportions of all categorical columns per each value in the output column. It used the same code that it used for the proportion graphs, but it used it in a double for loop where the second for loop is the output column. Let's copy and paste the code in the notebook. You can see that the first graph has the proportions of sex when the output is 0. And then the second graph shows you the proportions of sex when the output is 1. But this sort of back and forth when comparing the two graphs is quite cumbersome. So let's ask it to merge those two graphs into one graph. Effectively, we're going to have one graph per column. If we copy-paste the prompt above and add that one categorical column should be in one graph, then it should produce the correct results. Now it generated a slightly more complicated code, but the output is worth it. Now I don't like the stacked bar graph, so I'm just going to change the stacked attribute to false. Now there we go, this is way better than what we had before. Now we can compare proportions without scrolling back and forth. We can see that when chest pain is 0, the output is going to be most probably 0. Thus, the patient will not have a heart attack. We can also do the same analysis for the rest of the columns. Now let's create distributions with regards to the output column. It's going to be the same as the proportions, but rather than having the proportions, we're going to be plotting the distributions. We copy-paste the prompt above and change the categorical to numerical and the proportions to distributions. Everything else should stay the same. You can see that the generated code is very familiar. We can see that patients with a heart attack has a higher resting blood pressure than people that didn't have a heart attack. You can also check the other columns as well. Now let's generate box plots with regards to the output column. We'll just copy-paste the prompt above and change distributions to box plots. Then we copy the code and paste it in the notebook. With box plots, you can compare the two distributions more clearly. Let's also create a pair plot for all numerical columns using Seaborn. The code looks easy and straightforward, so just copy it and paste it in the notebook. The pair plot is an efficient way to see scatter plots for all combinations for your columns. Lastly, let's train a heart attack prediction model. Let's tell ChatGPT to write a Python program that reads the dataset, train a model that predicts whether a patient had a heart attack, and evaluate the model using sklearn's classification report. The code seems on point. It first determined the feature columns, then it separated the inputs and the outputs of the model, then it split the data into training and testing sets using the train-test-split function. Then it trained sklearn's logistic regression model, and then it evaluated the testing set using the classification report. Let's copy the code and paste it in the notebook. Let's run the imports first. Then let's define the x and y variables. Let's then split our data into training and testing sets. Then let's fit our model. And let's evaluate it using the classification report. We received an F1 score of 83%, which is not bad at all. This is actually impressive regarding that we didn't code anything. So that's it, guys. There are endless ways to get creative and use ChatGPT. I hope you found this video helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this.